A big day in court on this day 9. Joining us now is ABC's Alex Brachet, who is outside of that courtroom in Glenn County in South Georgia. Also, ABC News contributor, managing partner at the Cochran firm, Shauna Lloyd, and trial attorney C.K. Hoffler joining us as well. Thank you all for being here. And Alex, let me start with you. The prosecution pointing out some holes in the co-defendant Travis McMichael's testimony today, highlighting his history in the U.S. Coast Guard. What are your key takeaways?
Well, Kenneth, you heard in that last clip him saying, based on his prior experience being able to read the situation, the prosecution leaned into that as well, going into his history with the Coast Guard and also talking about some of his training behind use of force. And you heard her bring up the fact that brandishing a weapon in a lot of respects could be deemed as psychological coercion. She also brought up the Fifth Amendment and getting Travis on the stand to admit that he understands that just because a police ask you something doesn't mean that you're forced to answer them. And the other thing that struck me was she had this back and forth with Travis McMichael, where she says, well, the best way to retain your weapon, the best weapons retention technique, is to never brandish a weapon in the first place, which kind of gets to the moments leading up to Ahmaud Arbery's struggle. You see in that video shot by William Roddy Bryan that Travis McMichael already has his shotgun out, and that's ultimately what happens right before we hear the first shot on that cell phone video. Something else that she pointed out, because we heard in testimony earlier from defense attorney Sheffield, Travis McMichael walking us through how there had been an uptick in in crime in that neighborhood, and they had suspected at one point there was a woman who lived in the neighborhood who had her purse stolen, and they thought that it might be linked to people that were living under a bridge at this homeless encampment down the way. And him and his dad decided to check it out one day, armed. They saw a man fishing down there. Travis McMichael testifies to moving in between this man fishing and his machete and questioning that gentleman who they believe could have been armed. And the prosecution here pointed out that in that exchange that Travis McMichael and his father decided to go up to someone they later described as a shady-looking fellow rather than call police. And they only called police after they had investigated this situation. And so, I mean, you heard during opening statements with the prosecution, they said that what led up to the shooting of Ahmaud Arbery was a series of assumptions and driveway decisions. And the prosecution during this cross-examination clearly trying to paint a picture of consistent assumptions made by Travis McMichael today.
Yeah, he testified he was making assumptions about who was committing the alleged crimes until February 11th, when he had that first encounter with Ahmaud Arbery. CK, given your experience as a trial attorney, give us your highlights from the cross-examination of Travis McMichael. CK, we got to unmute there for us. We appreciate it.
I'm sorry.
There you go.
One of the highlights certainly was where she tried really to question his timeline and tried to question this notion that he felt threatened, that Ahmaud Arbery was threatening him. Another thing, she tried to question the fact that there were all this criminal activity allegedly in that neighborhood, where very little of it was reported. And she also challenged him on this notion, if his father was so sickly, had had heart problems and other problems, why in the world would he bring him into this, knowing that the father had these health challenges? And I think that she did a good job at slowly, and she's just begun, I imagine, unraveling some of the things that just don't make sense, don't make common sense. And certainly his training, she believes, should have led him to a different conclusion. Don't brandish this weapon if you know that it is a deadly weapon. Juxtaposing the guy under the bridge who had a machete, a knife, and Ahmaud Arbery, who did not have a knife. He just had his fist. And he was smaller than Travis McMichael. I think that's going to be something that's compelling. But again, she's just begun. She quit at a very good time. Clearly what she wanted to do, and I've done this before as a trial lawyer, you want to start the next day. She's going to have all night to prepare her cross. And I hope that what she does is she juxtaposes his timeline with the videos, because I think that there are many inconsistencies. So I think she set it up nicely. She's made some ground already. She's been methodical, but I think tomorrow she's going to go in for the kill.
Okay, Shauna, let me turn to you, because as CK said there, she believes that Linda Donikowski is just getting started, that she's ready to go in there. I'm curious for you, do you think that this time to prepare, potentially tomorrow we could get to one of those gotcha moments, because it appears that she's weighing heavily on Travis McMichael's background with guns. She's talking about his use of force training as well. She got that out of the way today. So what do you think the strategy will be going into tomorrow?
I think her strategy really is, as CK mentioned, is to use these statements that he's made. He's brought in this training that he has that made him feel justified in investigating what was happening with Ahmaud Arbery. He talks about how he was thinking about his dad and his son, and he brings in these ideas that I just wanted to talk to Ahmaud Arbery, and he says that he gave him so many opportunities to speak back. I think the thing that with this testimony, what you're going to see her do tomorrow is slowly but surely show the other sides of that. Because what she's going to show is that your training would tell you that you don't brandish a gun. If you're investigating, then you're asking questions. There was a neighbor that you didn't even inquire any information about to even say why you're beginning this chase. I think all of these things that you see him talking about, I think you're going to see her slowly dismantle them. All of this time that he claims he was trying to get Ahmaud to say something to him or address him, she's already set it up very nicely by making him agree to the fact that everyone has a Fifth Amendment right. And the truth is, there should have been a different decision-making process if he had all this time that he's quote unquote referring to. And then I think finally we're going to definitely see her compare everything that he's saying with the video, because we all know that jurors like to see it for themselves. They want to see it with no inflection if possible. And the story that he's painting now is very distinctly different than what's on the video. And I think you'll see her finalize with that video at the end of her cross-examination.
Shauna, I'm curious if you think the prosecutor should ask point blank here what he knows about the citizen's arrest law, or what he knew at that moment, at that time of the deadly encounter, since that is really at the heart of their self-defense cases, citizen's arrest law. Should she just point blank ask, what do you know about the citizen's arrest law here?
You know, it's interesting. Sometimes I think you do cut straight to the heart of the matter, but I think what she's actually doing is going to be much more effective in the end, because what she's doing is she is highlighting and illustrating all of these, as she calls them, driveway decisions, these micro decisions that led him to a situation that he then testifies that he felt he had no other choice. But the truth is, what she's doing is she's backing him up to highlight every choice he made to lead him to this situation. And that is where you're going to start to see the intent element play into this. You're going to start to see the time element play into this, because all of his actions led him to this encounter at the end. And that is what she's highlighting to the jury. And I actually think it's more effective than even going straight to the heart of that question.
CK, we also saw Travis McMichael showing some emotion. Let's see that moment again.
By the time I get to the front truck, he is at the front corner panel on the right-hand side, and he turns and is on me, in a flash. Immediately on me.
On you doing what?
He grabs the shotgun, and I believe I was struck on that first instance that we made contact.
What were you thinking at that moment?
I was thinking of my son. It sounds weird, but that was the first thing that hit me.
What did you do?
I shot.
Why?
He had my gun. He struck me. It was obvious that he was. It was obvious that he was attacking me. That if he would have got the shotgun from me, then it was. This is a life or death situation, and I'm going to have to stop him from doing this. So I shot.
Did he stop when you shot?
He did not.
CK, we had that emotional moment there. We also heard this softer tone from Travis McMichael, especially compared to the 911 calls where he sounded a little bit more aggressive on the phone versus in court when he's talking, through the defense attorney, talking to the court, to the jurors. We know that the defense is trying to humanize him there on the witness stand. So what's the importance of that emotional moment, particularly for the jury?
I think it's an attempt to have him to connect to the jury. There are a lot of women on the jury to humanize him, but there are two things that strike me about that very emotional, quote unquote, testimony. One, when he can't quite remember if Ahmaud Arbery actually struck him. He said, "I believe he struck me." Number one, it's amazing he wouldn't remember that. And number two, choice of words. Words matter. At the moment, and when he starts tearing up and crying, it's because he's thinking of his son. Ahmaud Arbery's mother is in the courtroom, feet away from him. And he's not even thinking about her son that she would never see again, who she will never hug again, all the moments that she will never enjoy with him. But yet he's tearing up because he's thinking about his son. I have children. I know that feeling when you feel some kind of way about your children. But it's very interesting that he chose that analogy, a direct, I believe, plug to hit to the heartstrings of those mothers on the jury. But my goodness, how about the mother in the audience who lost her son, and you're the person who shot and killed him? I just think that was very, very interesting in terms of the preparation that he had to bring that home.
Alex Prochet, outside that courthouse, we know there's been a lot of activity, a lot of emotion as well. Yes, inside the courtroom, but also outside the courtroom. And I think many of the people who were there in support of Ahmaud Arbery's family, in support of him, would say, especially as the defense and as Travis McMichael tries to kind of use some rhetoric there on the stand about his demeanor, that he was irrational, that he was this running back with a burst of energy who essentially quote unquote scary black man there. But many there who were in support would point out that Ahmaud Arbery's actions, even walking to that construction site, authorized or not, or unauthorized, was not grounds for a death sentence.
Well, and Kenneth, I don't think you can see it, but just past these columns, there is a large crowd. Actually, it's the largest that we've seen since I've been here. And we know that support for the Arbery family is ramping up through this week. But when you heard Travis McMichael have that metaphor, comparing Ahmaud Arbery to a running back, or having his brow furrowed, or something wasn't right with him, and all these indications that his teeth were clenched and that something was wrong, you knew that wasn't going to sit well with Wanda Cooper Jones, the mother of Ahmaud Arbery, who was in the courtroom. And we just heard from her speak on these courtroom steps to her supporters, saying that we feel, or we're being tried for the murder of our son. And Arbery's father, Marcus, was standing next to her. This was clearly a difficult day for the Arbery family. We've heard from Wanda Cooper Jones in the past saying that she did want to hear from all three of these defendants, to hear their version of events and what was in their minds that particular day. But undoubtedly, hearing her son described in these ways was pretty unsettling, and it's something that I anticipate we're going to hear a lot about outside the courthouse steps as this trial progresses.
And as we look ahead to tomorrow, Shauna Lloyd, we know that, yes, we will start the day, or we're expecting to start the day with Travis McMichael and the prosecutor finishing up that cross-examination. But the other big question, will the other two defendants, the father, Gregory McMichael, and the neighbor, Roddy Bryan, will they take the stand in their defense?
It's always an interesting question whether or not to put a defendant for this type of a situation on the stand. And it's really the decision lies with the client. If the client determines that they want to get on the stand, then they have the right to testify. Now, whether or not that's good for their case is a legal strategy. And that's where you're going to see the dynamic between client and lawyer happen. For instance, with Mr. McMichael's on the stand right now, anytime you decide to testify, you open yourself up to a cross-examination. examination that your testimony may or may not hold up for. The other thing that you do is you actually allow yourself to be exposed to the jury in a very different way. We all have the Fifth Amendment. They have a right not to testify. But once they have decided to testify, the jury is going to get a very good look at all manner of the way they testify, the way they deal with cross-examination, the way they deal when they're frustrated, if they can't remember something, the way they respond to inconsistencies in their statement. And that opens fertile ground for juries to make determinations about whether or not they believe that testimony.
All right, such a busy day in this day 9 of the trial involving the death of Ahmaud Arbery. Alex Brachet, Shauna Lloyd, C.K. Hoffler. Lord, I don't know what we'd do without you. I really appreciate your expertise today, and I'm pretty sure we will be back at it again tomorrow to pick it all up. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.